This is a low-carbon, keto-friendly pizza crust. To achieve it has taken 30+ iterations of proofing, kneading, saucing, baking, blind taste tests, and pizza. Lots and lots of pizza. However, this is a problem worth solving because this is Dennis, and he has
a pizza problem. If it's around, I just can't control myself. It's my vice, which is why I've been working on a low-carbon, keto-friendly pizza crust. Because if I don't satisfy those cravings, well, bad things happen. I'd like to place an order.
And this is Mr. D, the man dedicated to making bad things happen. To start the crust, we need sugar.
Yes, sugar. I'll explain in a second.
To a decently sized container, he adds 12 grams of the white demon. Then he adds 50 milliliters of hot filtered water. In this instance, he's using a kettle, but it can be heated by any means. Next, he takes a thermal measurement. The sugar water must be between 100 and 110 degrees American for his instant yeast to wake up. Too hot, and they die. He adds 3/8 of a teaspoon in the single-celled organisms, and, although not necessary, uses the Jason method to give the buggers a little boost. He sets them aside to bloom and covers them with a tea towel to prevent leaves and various debris from falling inside.
So, sugar. Allow me to explain. Now, you might be wondering why I'm using sugar in a low-carb and keto-friendly recipe. Truth is, the carbs from the sugar don't actually count towards the recipe. Reason is, the yeast that we just awoke from a deep, dark slumber actually feed on the sugar and produce CO2. This is a process better known as fermentation, a process that...
Can I help you?
Hey, I got a large cheese pizza for Dennis.
I didn't order a pizza.
Well, it was ordered and paid for already. I even got a really nice tip.
I don't want it.
I can't take it with me.
It's yours. Consider it a gift.
I'm allergic to gluten.
Throw it away.
Where?
Fine, you know what? Thanks. Have a good one.
A good method to enjoy traditional pizza is to simply eat the cheese.
Or you could just have a bite.
Although a bite is not going to ruin his diet, it does in fact lead down a dangerous road.
Alright, back to the crust.
As the yeast blooms, it's time to prepare the dry ingredients. To the device with multiple spinning Bushido blades, he adds flour and the almonds. By pulverizing the almond flour, he decreases any possibility of graininess in the crust. Next things next, it's time for the remaining dry ingredients. He adds flour made from the lupin bean, and for the necessary stretchiness in the pizza, vital wheat gluten. Then the all-important secret ingredient, gelatin. This helps keeps the crust soft as well as moist, just make sure it's of the unflavored variety. Afterwards, he adds 4 to 5 grams of sodium chloride, or if so inclined, a few pinches. The ingredients are mixed to ensure they are evenly distributed before moving on to the wet software. Using a fruit scale in a rather accident-prone manner, he adds 30 grams of extra virgin olive oil. Why he's using mass for this instead of volume is a valid question. Now that his yeast has feasted and bloomed for at least 10 minutes, it's time for its grand entrance to the club. Because inside the cup, it is in fact a dance party. Using 170 milliliters of cold water, he adds some of the water into the yeast, swirls it around, and empties it into the vessel. The section is repeated until he has no more water, and this method ensures maximum yeast organism transfer. He pulverizes the dough for 45 to 60 seconds max, otherwise the dough will begin to heat up, and this is not desirable. To a large bowl or a quart container, he adds some extra virgin olive oil and spreads it around. Then onto his cutting board he places his dough. Using his hand he begins to knead the dough until it feels consistent throughout. Once the dough feels like a singular blob, he begins to pinch it towards the bottom. Then he places it into his pre-oiled vessel. However, we're not yet ready. Last, he must cover the container with a breathable layer, be it a paper towel or tea towel. Reason being, the yeast need to breathe. However, we want to keep our pests and any leaves. Once the cover is secure, he cleans, because ants. The dough must be placed in a warm, dark area so that it can proof. Lucky for him, he lives in Florida, where the garage is a perfectly suited location. The ideal temperature is between 80 and 85 degrees American. However, if you don't have a garage, another viable solution is the oven, or better yet, the trunk of a car. Just ensure it's not too hot. Also, attempt to avoid leaves at all costs. Back inside, the air is still heavy with the smell of pizza. With his lack of willpower, he decides to eat a slice. A decision that leads him deeper and deeper into the heart of darkness.
Can't let this happen again. I'd like to place an order. Extra cheese.
Luckily, while he was chasing the dragon, the dough proofed for 2 hours. He fetches it from the garage and preheats the oven to 450 degrees American.
Oh, jeez, you again?
I got a large extra cheese pizza for Dennis.
You know you were here like 4 hours ago.
Yeah, it was. I knew this place looked familiar.
I don't want the pizza.
Well, it was ordered and paid for it. I even got a really nice tip.
Yeah, got it. Thanks. Have a good one.
How do you know about the tip?
With the demon locked away, it's time to get cooking. To a large baking tray, he cuts a piece of parchment paper, and since he's feeling rather fancy, he perfectly cuts it to size. To this, he dumps his entire dough, which seemingly defies all facets of gravity. Although this could be split in two, he's going for the whole shebang. Using his fingers, he presses out from the center, creating a well and a wall around the rim. Be aware, if you roll the dough flat or fold the edges in, it will burn.
Hey, get out of here!
The crust is made as large as he desires and placed back into the baking tray. Then, toppings. Sauce. More sauce. Cheese. More cheese. And to the oven. It appears that one of his lights has gone out. However, he fears not, because the light at the end of the tunnel is the brightest. He sets a timer for 12 minutes for this sized pizza, and while he waits, it's time for questions from the future.
Now, there's a few things we need to go over. Can we substitute the wheat gluten? Unfortunately, no. There's nothing I've found that provides the same level of elasticity and sort of stretch that wheat gluten provides. Whether you decide to eat wheat gluten or not is up to you. I prefer to eat it because it's either this pizza or I eat an entire real pizza, traditional style, and just feel like crap for the next 2-3 days. Up to you. Some people like to use xanthan gum, but I don't find that it provides the same stretch that we need for a good low-carb pizza. Can we substitute the lupin or almond flour? Unfortunately, no. The original recipe had coconut flour, and since then I've just substituted it for lupin flour, and it has made a world of difference. I know some people like to substitute coconut flour for almond flour due to nut allergies, but coconut flour just has a very different absorption rate. And honestly, the mixes and ratios that I've come up with it's over 30 iterations, and this is the mix that works for this combination. We can use it as a baseline, but you can't substitute them for other flours. Do you need to let the dough rest? Yes, at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. You can let it rest more, but at least a minimum. You need to let that yeast burp to create those sort of air bubbles inside the dough. Alright, little guy. Rude. Can you use a pizza stone? I'm going to say yes. Now, take this with a grain of salt because I'm not exactly sure. The reason I'm going to say yes is because there's no cheese or dairy in the dough, so nothing's going to melt and stick to the pizza stone. Granted, I tried this with the pizza mesh and there was a little bit of stickage, but I think it's just a matter of it not crisping well enough. You could also just dust it maybe with some oat fiber or even flour or cornstarch, and that should solve the problem. But which brings the bigger question of why don't I have a pizza stone? Can you freeze the dough? Abso-freaking-lutely. This dough is fantastic frozen. Just make little pan pizzas if you want. Stick them in a Ziploc bag. You can freeze them with your toppings, without your toppings. It's just gonna take a little bit longer to cook when you pull it out. Depends if you defrost or not. So you're just gonna have to watch it and make sure it doesn't burn. But it works really, really well for the sort of late night cravings or any sort of quick lunch that you may want for pizza, because it is a good pizza. Do you need to add the gelatin? No, but I highly, 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 highly recommend it. It sort of adds the right amount of moisture in the crust, but also allows the crust to be crispy. One of the things I encountered with maintaining moisture, because the flour doesn't absorb water the same, and coconut flour just absorbs too much. You could potentially use xanthan gum, but I think that would get too much in the realm of trying to provide too much elasticity. But the gelatin works really well. You can also use glucoman, or cognac powder, stuff they use for miracle noodles. I don't know how to pronounce this stuff. But it's a lot harder to come by. Gelatin is pretty much anywhere. Just make sure you use unflavored and not orange flavor or something weird like that. Last but not least, this recipe makes enough for 4 servings. Typically, I'll eat half a pie, which is 2 servings, and that is more than sufficient. Trust me, it's incredibly filling. There's a lot of fiber, a lot of really good stuff in here. Don't try to eat a whole pizza. Just don't be a hero. Don't ask me how I know. Just eat half. Perfect timing.
This has been Questions from the Future. The crust is exquisite. Soft, slightly chewy, airy, and slightly crispy underneath. It is in fact the best low-carb and keto pizza crust he has ever eaten. And with such great power comes great pizza. Pizza so amazing that the demons are no longer a temptation. However, if pasta is more of what you are in the mood for, make sure to check out this amazing keto pasta that actually cooks and tastes like pasta. Till then, eat well.
Patience. Patience.